I've also had the pleasure of working closely in a professional capacity with DPS on issues related to school health, behavioral health, and even amid the COVID crisis. Boy, was that fun. I'm currently a member of Educate Denver, which is a coalition of civic leaders who support Denver public school students. Educate Denver is a sponsor of this event, and I'd like to thank you for coming tonight to learn more about the candidates and our ability to ensure that each and every student receives the education they deserve. We know that that education rests on the quality of our DPS leaders. We honor your commitment to knowing the candidates and to voting in this very significant upcoming election. So thank you for being here tonight, and with that, we'll move on to the guests of honor.
Before we officially start, though, another housekeeping rule, if I can just remind everyone to turn their cell phones off, or at least the ringers off. And then if every candidate who comes on, if we can just put the cell phone maybe on the floor, if you don't mind, so we don't have it on the desk. And then hopefully we'll start soon. Anna's going to give me the cue, and then we'll start. Hello, everyone. I'm Michelle Griego, CBS News Colorado morning anchor, and it is my honor to bring you this Denver Public Schools Board of Education candidate debate. So these school board elections are critically important to our children's future and the future workforce of our great city. I myself I'm a proud graduate of DPS, George Washington High School. I also went to DPS from first grade on to high school, and I'm very grateful for the opportunities DPS afforded me. So this debate tonight is being hosted by Regis University and presented together with Chalkbeat Colorado, CBS News Colorado, and Educate Denver. We are also grateful to have the support of community partners, including the Colorado Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, the Colorado Black Chamber of Commerce, and FaithBridge. So co-moderating the debate with me is Melanie Asmar, Bureau Chief of Chalkbeat Colorado, and Melanie covers DPS for Chalkbeat. Melanie and I will be questioning the candidates tonight. We also have questions that have been submitted by the public, including questions from students within the district. So it is very important that each of the 4 debates we host tonight run on time and that the debate structure is adhered to so voters can receive the insights to make informed choices. The at-large race debate, to be decided by all the city's voters, will go first. It'll last 45 minutes. The district races will follow, and you can see all the races streamed live on the CBS Colorado YouTube channel. Other seats contested this November are District 4, representing Northeast Denver, District 3, representing Central Denver, and District 2, representing Southwest Denver. Each candidate will be given a minute to respond to the question, and each candidate will be given 1 rebuttal, and that will be limited to 30 seconds. And then we'll end each debate with each candidate providing a 30-second closing statement. So we have some strict rules here tonight. In the at-large race, we have Amy Klein Molk and Alex Magañad. The name for candidate Deborah Sims-Fard will appear on the ballot. However, she has dropped out of the race due to an injury. So Amy and Alex, I want to welcome you here tonight, and thanks to each of you for being here. And with that, we are ready to begin. My colleague from Chalkbeat, Melanie, will ask the first question.
Thank you. What is the biggest issue facing DPS, and how would you address it? Alex, we'll start with you.
The biggest issue, there's 2 issues. One is the structures that they have in place for the policy governance of not able to holding ourselves accountable for the academic outcomes of our students. That takes me to the second piece. We need to do a better job to ensuring that all kids are succeeding in our schools. We need to have disaggregated data where it shows all kids are increasing their academically and also getting the supports they need socially and emotionally. We have too many gaps in our education where we have our white students highly outperforming our black and brown students, yet they have the same starting point, and that's not okay. We need to break that down, ensure that our educators, our teachers have the resources that they need, and that our students have the supports that they need so that they are successful.
So the biggest issue facing our district is that we need to rebuild trust, and we need to do that by ensuring that every single student has a great neighborhood school where their needs are met and where they have the resources to thrive. We need to make sure that we have smaller class sizes and that we're really supporting our educators with real resources and fair pay. And finally, we need to be creating schools that are future ready and able to protect our students. Students cannot learn if they do not feel safe and do not feel prepared for the future. And it is our job to ensure that we are creating a community of trust. A trust where our community feels great about sending their students to school. A community of trust where our teachers feel great that they are supported. And a community of trust where our students feel that they are prepared and ready for the future ahead.
Amy, thank you. So the next question, I'll ask you first. Enrollment in DPS is declining, and DPS also has a policy that calls for closing schools with low test scores. So would you vote to close a school with low enrollment or low test scores? Why or why not?
No, I would not. So first of all, we need to look at why our schools are declining in enrollment, and we need to fix that problem. We need to work with what we have, and we need to rebuild the schools that we have so that they are successful, so that they are delivering for every single student. Also, test scores alone are not a fair evaluation of how our students and our educators are doing. We need to be looking at growth. We need to be looking at attendance. We need to be looking at how our students are doing socially and emotionally, and we need to take all of those data points, and then we make a decision on how our schools are doing. But the most important thing is making sure that we get the resources into every single school, and we can do that. I've done it. It takes a lot of creativity, and we need to roll up our sleeves and find resources where there is scarcity, and we can make that happen.
We've known about this problem for the past 10 years, and we still have not come up with a solution. And we still have the problem that overall in the district, we have a down in our enrollment. We need to be proactive and go ahead and set systems in place to see how we are going to do everything we can not to close schools. But that requires that we look at throughout, where are the students going? What options do we have? Are we working with the city? Are we working with the city and the district to ensure that we are doing the right thing of not closing? So it cannot be on just test scores. It cannot just be on enrollment. The district's accountable. The board is accountable to ensure how do we prevent that from happening. We've known this for 10 years. Why principals, as a principal, if I knew my enrollment is going down, I go ahead and start making adjustments now, yet we haven't done that, and that's going to be a high priority as a board member.
Thank you, Alex. We'll start with you for this next question. The school board oversees the superintendent, and that topic came up frequently in questions submitted by the public. Is DPS Superintendent Alex Marrero doing a good job? Why or why not?
Is he doing a good job? Is he meeting all the goals and that we have set forth? Overall, he's doing the job that he was hired to do. But if we look at our academic data, are all kids growing? Do we have a big gap between our black and brown students and our white students? If we take those measures, we'd say, no, it's not. Now let's talk about climate of the school, or the safety in the school. Have there been safety issues that have occurred that could have been prevented? Yes. Therefore, is he doing a good job? The answer is no. But I'm going to push on this. We need to hold the board accountable for monitoring the superintendent. That's the role of the board. The board needs to set clear goals around academics, around safety and security, around culture, around professional development, and ensuring that all of our kids are succeeding. And the board has not done an adequate job. So the superintendent is doing what he was assigned to do. Overall, he was missing it, but you'd have to take a look at what measures he was given to determine if he was really doing a good job.
The board's job is to create the vision that then is executed by the superintendent. And the superintendent has done their job in fulfilling that mission, in meeting their goals, and in creating a environment where our students we're seeing success rise again in a post-pandemic world. When we look at someone and how they're performing, it needs to be something that we evaluate with lots of different data points. We need to engage our community. We need to ask our community how they feel the superintendent is doing. We need to ask our teachers how the superintendent is doing. We need to ask our principals how the superintendent is doing. And we need to take all of those data points and do thorough reviews and give thorough recommendations on how the superintendent can continue to thrive and where they continue to grow. That is how we create a great system.
Amy, thank you. This next question, we're going to start with you. So DPS has taken steps to protect students from immigration enforcement in and around schools, even suing the Trump administration. How do you think the district should approach this issue?
I think the district is doing a phenomenal job at approaching this issue, and I think we have to continue to go hard. This is not something that we can back down from. Our schools should be a safe place for our students and for our communities. It should be a place where kids can go to get meals. It should be a place where kids can go to learn, and it should be a place where kids can go to get the emotional supports that they need. So not only do we need to continue to fight against this administration, but we also need to be equipping our schools with the resources so that they can truly support these communities with social emotional efforts, wraparound services, connecting them to lawmakers and to people who can protect them. This is something that is so incredibly important, and our schools play a vital role in protecting our immigrants and our immigrant students. And I cannot tell you how important this is to me, and I will fight very, very hard to continue down this path.
As a person that grew up in Mexico, I can't imagine what the kids are feeling and experiencing. Just yesterday, we had the FBI showing up to one of our students' homes, and then ICE showed up. The problem is real, and I've been fighting from day one on the issues. Has DPS done things? Yes. Can we do more? Absolutely. And that's what we need to continue to do. We need to provide additional resources to our families. We need to create that safe space, but we should not have students in fear. I sat in a library with 50 families looking at me, and I can tell you right now, half of them have probably been deported. What does that say about our democracy? We need to stand up. We need to work together. We need to work with our city. We need to work with the state to ensure that we are creating that safe space for our students, because education doesn't have boundaries. We educate all of our kids.
Thank you, Alex. This next question will start with you. School safety also came up a lot in questions submitted by the public. How should DPS protect students from gun violence? What should happen to students who bring guns to school?
As a principal for several years and an educator for the past 25 years, the first thing that we need to do is ensure that we have clear systems at every school, that we look at the infrastructure as students are walking in, and we work with our community around doing that. And we talk to our teachers that are in the building, and we talk to our principals that are in the building to find the gaps. That's the first thing. The second is we need to educate our teachers on the look-fors and make sure that our kids never go home with fear. Our students know a lot of information through social media. There are systems in place that should be capitalized. For example, the Safe to Tell. Utilize that on an ongoing basis so that we create that. And now, as far as for students that are bringing guns into school or have any type, we need to have an alternative programming to ensure that all kids are safe. And that means that we will need to have other resources outside of the school, as opposed to putting our teachers, our principals, and our students in fear and possible danger.
Do you mind repeating the question?
Of course. How should DPS protect students from gun violence? And what should happen to students who bring guns to school?
So we know in order to really make change, we have to invest in mental health supports for our students. That is how we actually break the cycle of violence. We need to increase the amount of mental health workers we have in schools. We need to bring down class sizes so that teachers can have real relationship with students and help identify the problems before they arise. We also need to make sure that, sorry, the clock was not going. We also need to make sure that we have restorative practices. So when we do have SROs in schools, that they are trained, that they are there to be mentors, not to police. And if a student brings a gun to school, we must have an alternative for them. We cannot have students in danger at school. So we must make sure that that student has the mental health supports they need. If they need some type of rehabilitation, we need to help that happen right away. And then we need to do our very best to get them back into the school where they belong so that they can continue to thrive with the supports that they need.
Amy, thank you. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. CBS grads in the audience? What school?
It's very confused because my timer wasn't going on.
Yeah,
And I was
yeah,
like,
they both bounced. Yeah, they both did. Yeah.
well, it wasn't counting down. So I was like, I didn't know how much time I had left. Oh my goodness.
I think I'm going to be blind from the lights for a while.
I know. Luckily, they're far away enough that it's not heating us. But yes, blindness is
These are 30-second questions? Oh, okay.
yeah, it's all good.
I'll just keep
Thank
talking.
you.
15 seconds. Welcome back, and we're going to continue our questioning in the at-large race with Amy Klein Molk and Alex Magañad. So our next question is a special question. It comes from a student. Amy, we're going to start with you. This question comes from Jack Baker, a junior at Thomas Jefferson High School, and a FaithBridge student fellow. So Jack asks, what policies do you plan to introduce to ensure the fiscal health of DPS and to monitor the equitable distribution of resources to all schools?
So wonderful question, and it is extremely important. So yes, the most important thing we can do to bridge this gap within our school system is to make sure that our schools are funded equitably. And so we have to look at the unique needs of every single school in the district. And we have to see where those schools need supports and where they are succeeding. And then from there, we have to create policy that actually makes sure that we are giving students the funding that they need based on their background. So it cannot always be based on per pupil funding. It needs to be based on the actual needs of our students. So what we need to do is we need to go and we need to talk to communities. We need to talk to leaders in the schools. We need to talk to teachers. We need to talk to students, and we need to understand what their unique needs are. Once we do that groundwork, we can come together and think about where we can find that money within the budget and then where we can reallocate it. We also absolutely have to look at the way that we're drawing lines in DPS and boundaries. It's something that hasn't been looked at for a while. It's being looked at now, and I think we need to continue doing it.
Do you mind repeating the question?
Not at all. What policies do you plan to introduce to ensure the fiscal health of DPS and to monitor the equitable distribution of resources to all schools?
Well, as a principal for the past, or the educator for the past 25 years, I see the inequities in our schools, and I see the inequities in several of our schools. I'll take my schools. You look at one school, Grant Middle School, you drive 5 miles. The second school is not kept up at the same level as the first school. What does that say? The bar is not the same. So it shouldn't depend on the area, whatever else. Every school should be at a high quality. We are fortunate to have voters that are supporting our schools through the bond. We need to put that money into the schools and make them state-of-the-art schools for our kids. A couple things. I sat on the state task force, state task force, and there is a budget formula there where we focus on the needs of our students on IEPs, at-risk students, and that formula still exists at the district level. So we need to identify what are the needs of the schools, ensure that all schools have what the supports that they need in the classroom to maintain that physical, safe environment for our students.
Thank you both. This next question will start with you, Alex. The Trump administration has requested that DPS get rid of its all-gender bathrooms or risk losing federal funding. What should the district do?
Well, some of the stuff that they're doing now is fighting back, and we shouldn't be bullied because it's questioning our values of who we are. The Trump administration is bullying districts by the funding that they're providing at the federal government. At that point, what are our values, and then how do we make up that 10%, 8% from the federal government? We need to make sure that we are doing what we think is right for our kids. Now, you take a look at a $1.5 billion budget, and then you take 10%. Can we figure out how to make that? Can we work with the city? Can we work with the state? Can we start challenging the state on even things like Tabor and going, hey, we need more funding in our schools because this is what the Trump administration is pushing on it. Don't we want high-quality schools? Therefore, let's be proactive in solving this, not give in to a bully, and that's what I would bring to the board.
We absolutely should be protecting our students, and we should be protecting our decisions to have all-gender bathrooms. We will not back down to a bully. I will not back down to a bully, and this is just the beginning. And any time we are looking at a administration that has ties to billionaire dollars, to special interests, to trying to politicize anything having to do with human rights, we are in huge trouble, and we have got to fight against that. And so we really have to question who is on the board. What is their experience? Where do their values lie? Do their values lie in protecting students and our teachers, or do their values lie in politicizing our school system by taking money from billionaire corporations? We have to stop it now.
Amy, thank you. Does the school board spend enough time discussing student academic data? Why or why not? And if not, what would you propose the board do?
If I could just add to the part that she can respond. One is we need to respect the board members that are there and the intention. Also, I'm going to call out my 25 years of experience of putting students first when we're talking about values. Now, I'll take the question.
Was that a rebuttal? I'm confused of the process
I just responded
here.
because I was using my time.
Okay, so I'm going to ask Amy the question. We're going to start with Amy.
That was my question.
Yes. So does the school board spend enough time discussing student academic data? Why or why not? And if not, what would you propose the board do? And we'll start your clock over.
Thank you. We do spend a lot of time analyzing data. That is for sure. And I know that data is king. I have a vast background from classrooms to boardrooms. I have done it all. I do not come here with one lens. I have seen it all. And so when we look at data, it's so incredibly important that we desegregate that data, that we understand it, that we poke every last hole in it. Because when we do that, when we fully understand the data, and not just test scores, I am talking about attendance, I am talking about the well-being of our students, I am talking about how our teachers are doing, if they are doing, special teachings and all different things to make themselves better. All of these points of data need to inform us in how we make decisions to guide the vision of the district. And again, I want to be really clear, that is our job as a board, is to guide the vision.
The answer is no. We're celebrating data, which we should, but help me understand why we have our black and brown students are not reading at the level of our white students with the same starting point. Are we talking about data? I've sat in board meetings and we're that data is not being talked about on a consistent basis where we're holding ourselves accountable. That's the job of the board. That's the work I've been doing for the past 25 years. As a principal, I was held to the data. As teachers, we're held to the data. If schools are underperforming, we look at the teacher, we look at the principal. That's the same expectation for anyone that is working in the district. So, and the other piece is, we would establish is right now, when we're looking at data, board members, from my understanding, have to have a majority vote to request for additional data. That should be fully transparent and available to all families and disaggregate the data. And the second piece is, what is the scorecard? There should be a clear scorecard that is transparent and broken down by subgroups, not interpreted by a few members. It's available to everyone, from parents to students and to our schools and to our educators.
I'd like to rebuttal, please. Thank you. So in full transparency, I have been looking at all of the schools' work that they've been doing. And Alex, I'm curious, I've noticed that there are students in your school, mostly students who come from lower income backgrounds and also students with disabilities who are not succeeding. And with 14 years of experience leading your school, I'm wondering, why is that still happening? Why is there still a gap at your school, and what are you doing to fix it?
Well, let's not insult all the teachers and educators that show growth, because we were one of the highest growth schools in the district. We're a high-performing school. Also, keep in mind that our kids are coming in at 11% proficiency at elementary, and those are traditional schools. They're coming in at 12% at math proficiency, and those are traditional schools. So now, talk to me about how our 8th grade students are hitting 70 MGPs, a median growth percentile, and our black students are performing at a higher level than students, than 8th grade students in the district level. That's the work that we're doing.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Amy. This next question is also about academic data. We'll go to you first, Alex. Several questions submitted by the public asked specifically about the achievement of Black and Latino students. What policies would you support, or what direction would you give the superintendent regarding the education of Black and Latino students in particular?
I would suggest some of the work that my schools have done. We partnered with organizations to bring robust libraries. We partnered with organizations to educate our parents. We partnered with organizations to provide high-level training to our teachers. And that's why we're closing the gap with our Latino students. Those are some of the things that I would put in place. It comes down to, if our Black and brown students are not performing at the level, do the teachers have the training that they need? Are the resources available to the teachers? And do they know their cultural identity, and do they know the identity of the kids? We have predominantly white teachers in our district. They all want to make an impact on our kids, but they also need to know how to meet the needs of all students. And that's ongoing professional development and supporting our educators.
Do you mind repeating the question? Thank you.
Of course. What policies would you support, or what direction would you give the superintendent regarding the education of Black and Latino students in particular?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, we need to be creating great schools for every single student, regardless of the color of their skin. I also think that we need to be focusing on making sure that we are developing curriculum that is reflective of all of our students. We need to be recruiting and maintaining great teachers that reflect our communities, and we need to incentivize them, we need to train them, we need to make sure that they have all of the resources that they need. We also need to make sure that we are looking at the unique needs of our communities. I was just out in the Southwest today talking to a bunch of amazing kids who are telling me about this robust mentoring program that has changed everything for them. So we need to be making sure that we are putting in extracurriculars, that we are putting in mentoring programs, and that we are helping students who need the extra support no matter what. Because in 4 years, when I sit here for re-election, I want to be able to say we did the work and we solved the problem.
Amy, thank you. So we'll start with you on this question. The school board has limited the amount of time allotted at the meetings for public comments. Do you agree with that decision? Why or why not?
Our community needs to have the voice that they deserve in sharing with the board what is going on and with informing our decisions as policymakers. So we have done a lot of work to talk about how we're going to create policy around engagement, and we have watched the board out in the community doing that hard work and making the change, and I am really proud of that. We need to make sure that every person has the amount of time that they need to talk about what they need to talk about. And also we need to understand that there is only so much time that we have for a board meeting. So I think it's a nuanced question. I think that we are taking steps in the right direction to engaging our community in the appropriate ways. And I want to see our community show up. I have been to so many engagement sessions, and I think that we need to encourage our community to come out, to have a voice, and we need to listen to them.
There was a school that was closed in Southwest Denver, and our families showed up. They did the right thing. There were several families with their kids. The families were pushed up to the 14th floor and were not permitted to talk to the board. What message are we sending there? Are we getting community input? It's not there. Certain people get input, not the families that we're serving. So we need to have clear policies that we will listen to our community. We will relook at how we're doing public comment. And if it's so much time, that's okay. If it's so much time, let's do our job correctly, and so then people aren't showing up to public comment. That's how you focus on the community. And then you do a lot of outreach and talking to the people, and not only the community, how about we talk to the principals? How about we talk to the teachers that are spending countless hours in the schools? A lot of times they have the answer, and those are the things that we need to put in place.
Alex and Amy, thank you very much. With that, we're going to take another quick break. We'll be right back.
I guess I can say welcome back, right? I don't know. No, just welcome back. Just between those two. Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. That works. We're out of rebuttals, right? What's that? We're out of rebuttals, right? That counted as Alex's rebuttal. Okay. I mean, she kind of asked him a direct question, so, but I did see they gave him 30 seconds on the clock, and so I think that counts. And there's only 2 more questions, so.
Yeah, and then our lightning round.
Yeah.
One minute.
Oh. We probably should have done that. No, thank you, though. Thank you for doing that. Yeah.
Yeah. Just no phone. No label.
Thank you, and welcome back to our at-large candidate debate for the Denver School Board with candidates Alex Magañad and Amy Klein Molk. For this next question, we'll start with you, Alex. DPS has a mix of district-run and charter schools, and several audience members and students submitted questions on this topic. What is your opinion of charter schools?
Charter schools are public schools, and the bar needs to be high where all schools are high performing and meeting the needs of the kids that are in that community. There's a reason for charter schools, there's a reason for innovation schools, there's a reason for magnet schools. But charter schools, innovation schools, those are all public schools. So how I feel about it is, as long as they are serving the needs of the students, academically, socially, and they're working with the community, and that's what the community is demanding, then I'm not sure why that question would exist. Because most families and parents aren't worried about charter school or innovation school. They just want good quality schools that they have available to them that meets the needs of their kids.
As I've been out in the community talking with everyone, the universal thing that I hear from everyone is I want a great, safe school for my child where they can succeed and grow. And so we have to put this whole thing to rest, and we have to focus on how we are going to hold schools accountable. We have to focus on how we are going to make sure that every single school in our district, regardless of the kind of school it is delivering on the promise that we have created for the students in our district. Because that is our job. Education is the foundation of democracy, and we have to do that now. We have to educate our students no matter what kind of school they are in. But the only way we can do that is with true transparency and accountability. Competition has no place in our school system. We need to be working together, and we need to be building a strong district.
Amy, do you believe school choice or the ability for students to choose any public school is a good thing? Why or why not?
I do believe choice can be a good thing. I think that parents often know what is best for their children, and we need to trust them in that. We do not have a real choice system, though. We have a ranking of 12 schools that you may or may not get in. So if we are going to actually have a choice system, then let's have everyone get their first choice. And the way we do that is by ensuring that every single neighborhood has a great school that every single child can access. When we do that, we have real choice.
I agree that there needs to be school choice based on the needs of the kids. It's important that there's a lot of great programs, from magnet programs, charter schools, innovation schools, specific programming that best meet the needs of our kids. We should also have, and as far as my kids went to their neighborhood schools, but there was a point in time where they could not go to their neighborhood school because it was not meeting the needs of their children, of their needs. And so school choice is a law. It's not something that we get to opt in and out of. It's a law that we are following that we can improve on, but that's something that we need to continue to support.
Alex and Amy, thank you. So now we're going to move into a lightning round. So candidates, raise your hand if you agree with the following statements. There are going to be a few. Denver Public Schools is headed in the right direction. Denver High School should have armed police officers stationed inside.
It depends. Oh, inside. Did you say inside?
Inside.
Oh, can I retract that?
Yeah. Sorry. Okay. Students should be called by their preferred names and pronouns.
Parents should be allowed to opt their children out of lessons they disagree with. Cell phones should be banned in schools. The school board should hire its own attorney when it negotiates the superintendent's contract.
Amy and Alex, thank you for that lightning round. We're going to move into closing statements now. So each candidate will have 30 seconds for a closing statement, and Amy, we'll start with you.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here, and thank you for those who have tuned in. This is extremely important. I have spent over 2 decades working as an advocate for education. I have been in the boardroom, I have been in the classroom, I have started 2 education companies, and what I have done is I have worked to solve really big problems with stakeholders across the board. And we have done that by listening to community, by hearing what people need, and then by helping build coalition to solve problems. When there is scarcity, I find resources. That is something that we must do as board members. We must be creative. We must not be afraid to roll up our sleeves and do the hard work, just like I did when I became a special ed paraprofessional. I knew our kids, our most vulnerable kids, needed support, and so I did the hard work that needed to be done, and I will continue to do that on the board.
Thank you, Regis, CBS 4, Chalkbeat, Educate Denver, and thank you for being here, and thank you for everyone that's watching. I've spent the past 25 years in education supporting our students, but I'm going to start with a quote. The future of our democracy depends on our ability to educate all kids. That's why I'm running, and that was from former President Barack Obama. We need to do better. Our kids deserve better. And I've always done the work to serve our kids as a teacher, as a principal, and as an executive director. I have turned schools around by working with community. I have even replicated schools when I had a mom come to us and say, yo quiero esto para mis hijos. I want this for my kids. And sure enough, we replicated that model. I came from Mexico, and my family traveled all over, and we didn't have much. I represent 60% of the students here in Denver. And regardless, I'll continue to fight for our kids, just like I've been fighting from day one, because our kids deserve something. And the only reason that I'm here is because somebody believed in me. And I'm going to do the same for every kid in Denver. Thank you.
Alex and Amy, we want to thank you for taking the time out today and answering all of those questions. That concludes this debate, but if you are watching on the CBS Colorado stream, we want you to stay with us for the District 4, 3, and 2 races, and we are streaming live on the CBS Colorado YouTube channel. We're going to be right back with the District 4 debate. begin. Is everyone ready? G-Dub is always ready. Oh, I don't want to start another fight. I already started one. Well, I want to welcome everyone back right now. In District 4, representing far northeast Denver, we have Jeremy Harris, Michelle Quattlebaum, Monica Hunter, and Timiya Jackson, and we want to thank all of you for being here tonight. So, with that, Melanie has the first question.
Yes, thank you all. What is the biggest issue facing DPS, and how would you address it? Jeremy, we'll start with you.
Thank you for the question. It starts with academics. We know only 40% of the kids in DPS are reading and about 35% are proficient in math. So it starts with investing in early childhood education to close those gaps. I would like to see our district really invest into reading interventionists and math interventionists to help close those gaps for our Black and brown kids. It's also started with prioritizing those academics and instilling early literacy programming geared around the science of reading and making sure that our teachers are well trained in teaching that curriculum to our students.
Thank you for the question. So we're an educational institution. So academic excellence, mental health, and equity are three priorities that I believe our district is faced with. And that's on a continuous base. And I promise to continue building on the trust that the community sent me to the board with 4 years ago. And I promise to continue leading in these three areas. One way that we have actually actualized prioritizing these issues is when we talk about academic success. Our Black students, we just learned, are gaining 9%. That's because we have the right individuals in place doing the right things. We're leading with the reading, with the science of reading. And we have high quality instructional material for our educators.
Thank you all for being here tonight, and thank you, Melanie, and you as well for
Michelle.
Michelle, yeah, I was thinking you. Thank you. The issues that I see most importantly is funding. Funding impacts every other issue, whether that's safety, whether that's closing achievement gaps, whether that is equity. Those are all funding issues, and we have to think of creative ways to ensure we are lobbying for more funding. Safety is a big concern, not only in Denver, but across Colorado, and we have to ensure that parents and students feel safe in their district. Mental health is a major crisis, which goes right along with safety, and we have to ensure that students and educators have the supports they need. Last but certainly not least is definitely closing achievement gaps specifically for Black and Latino students. Thank you.
When it comes to the issues that are happening within our district, we know that too many of our community members are saying trust is the number one thing that is lacking for them. Too many of our community members are feeling a lack of consensus to the decisions that are being made at the board level, and so they are asking questions about why. Too many of our students are lacking a sense of belonging in their school environments, and therefore they are left to ask, what is the purpose of education? We need to be focused on engaging our students in their learning at a young age so that they find their passions and that they are ready for the next chapter. In addition, we also need strong leadership at the board who is going to work in collaboration with community to uplift the voices and the needs of our students, to ensure we're partnering with our schools and that our schools have the supports and resources to continue to show up and do this work.
Thank you. So the next question, Timiya, I'm going to start with you. Enrollment in DPS is declining. DPS also has a policy that calls for closing schools with low test scores. So would you vote to close a school with low enrollment or low test scores Why or why not?
I would not vote to approve closing a school with low test scores because we know that our students are more than their test scores. I actually stood up to this board and to the superintendent when they tried to do that very thing at a school in far northeast Denver, when they tried to close the school because of test scores. We asked for more time. We wanted to be able to work in collaboration with community to put the supports and resources in place because we knew our kids deserved better and we got better. Our students are green and we still have work that needs to be done, but we are committed to doing that. That is critical, that is important, and so no, I would not close schools due to test scores.
Can you repeat the question?
Sure. Would you vote to close a school with low enrollment or low test scores? Why or why not?
I would not vote to close schools based off of either one of those. Although we know that low enrollment is a problem, we must look at the root cause. A lot of that is gentrification, and also people can't afford to have kids, right? And so we have to think of holistic ways to ensure that every student is getting what they need. I worked at a school as a teacher the year a school was closing, and I remember advocating for that school to stay open. We can't punish schools that don't have the resources. We must invest in those schools. The best schools are not in the highest level schools are the schools that have the most resources in it. Instead of punishing educators and parents and community members, we have to invest in them. We have to look at creative ways to make those schools community schools. So no, I would not.
Thank you for this question. I will tell you what I have done. Yes, we had a school in the far northeast that there was a recommendation put forward to close that school. That recommendation was based on state statute. It was not a board decision. It was based on state statute. However, the board has the flexibility to challenge that. And I did that for my community in the far northeast. Not only did I make sure that that school did not close, I ensured that the superintendent poured in resources and collaborated with that school to ensure that that the academics would rise up. So the answer to that is, would I close a school based on test scores? No, because I didn't do it, and I advocated for resources and collaboration with community to improve that school.
Test scores, don't tell the whole story, so I will vote no to close a school for low test scores. As far as enrollment, I will vote no as well. I think when we look at low enrollment, that is an opportunity for us to invest into that school. When we talk about classrooms being overcrowded, once we invest in those low enrolled schools, it's create opportunities to have families to come into those low enrollment schools, and that helps balance out our classroom sizes. Right now, my son is in a classroom with 33 other kids, and that's too many for a fourth grade classroom. So I think if we look at declining enrollment and look at investing into that schools, that will actually help create opportunities to lower classroom sizes at surrounding neighborhood schools. Thank you.
Thank you all. This next question comes from Journey Tootle, a freshman at Montbello High School and a Faith Bridge Fellow. Student achievement was at the root of a decision to close Montbello High School in District 4. Now that the school has reopened, what would you do as a board member to ensure students have the resources they need to achieve at a high level, keeping in mind that the board can pass policy and direct the superintendent? Jeremy, we'll start with you.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that question?
Sure. Now that Montbello High School has reopened, what would you do as a board member to ensure students have the resources they need to achieve at a high level?
It starts with making sure that we are investing in high quality programs within the school. dual enrollments, talking to a lot of seniors, most of them, once they get to college, find themselves taking remedial courses because their particular school did not offer dual enrollment. So it's about making sure that the school has all the high quality programs that they need to be successful, career and technical education, AP classes. So I will advocate to make sure that Montbello High School has all of the high quality programs that their neighborhood needs.
Okay, thank you. This is such an exciting question for me because I want to give a shout out to Montbello High School. They were just recently recognized by the Denver Scholarship Foundation for the premier high school in Denver. So what would I do? What I'm doing right now, ensuring that that school has the resources that they need, which they do have. They are actually leading the nation. We have other schools across the nation coming into Montbello High School to model the academic success that is happening in that school. So what would I do? I would continue doing what we're doing and look for other opportunities to highlight the school. I also want to share that Montbello High School, when they graduated their first graduating class, they graduated a student with a 4-year degree. That student received their degree, their undergrad degree, before they received their diploma because of the support in the school.
As a Denver native and a graduate of Denver Public Schools, I did not go to Montbello, but I absolutely know the history and the legacy of their excellence, Black excellence, and seeing their sports legacy that you just cannot deny. It is absolutely time that we ensure that they have every resource to gain back that reputation. It's a beautiful new building and people feel proud to go there. We have to ensure that they have resources. And not only that, we have to ensure that the educators there have what they need. I've spoken to this support staff there, and they have such high caseloads. When educators have high caseloads, they leave. And so we have to ensure that educators have what they need to ensure that Montbello has what it needs to continue its amazing legacy.
We know that Montbello High School has a beautiful new building, and it's going to be critical that we continue to pour resources into that building to make sure that it stays nice. We also want to make sure that we're having conversations with the community, our students, our teachers, the principals, the admin, the social workers, to ask them, what do you need on an ongoing basis? Not just one time, not parading the media around and showing them the shiny new object, but continuing to have disaggregated data that allows us to be able to be responsive to the needs in real time. That is equity. Monitor to adjust.
Thank you all. Timiya, I'm going to start with you. So DPS has taken steps to protect students from immigration enforcement in and around schools, even suing the Trump administration. How do you think the district should approach this issue?
I do want to give a huge shout out to the district. I think they are doing a phenomenal job with standing up to this administration, and that we have to continue the fight. Our kids deserve to feel safe when they come to schools. Our parents deserve to know that their students are going to be safe in our schools. So does our staff. Continuing to have Know Your Rights trainings so that we are able to provide those resources and supports. Allocating budgets so that if our families need to access attorneys, we can provide them with that support and resource as well. And it is critical that we make sure that when our students are en route and when they are leaving the school, that they are safe as well too. And so I will say that this district has done a great job, but we could always do more.
Can you repeat that, please? Sure. How do you think the district should approach the issue of immigration enforcement in and around schools?
Absolutely, the way they have. They have stood up to Trump, and that's beautiful. We students absolutely deserve safe and welcoming environments. I'm a millennial, and I grew up around when September 11th was happening, and I remember the president saying, we don't negotiate with terrorists. And right now, we don't negotiate with terrorists. Absolutely. Under this, they have stood strong. They were one of the first in the nation to sue. And I absolutely am so proud to send my kids to a school in a district that has stood up against Trump and their attacks. We have to ensure that that information is accessible, and we expand our reach into the community and ensure that everyone feels safe. We know that there are Know Your Rights trainings, and they are bilingual. And so I say keep going. We have to keep going with that as the attacks ramp up.
So we're doing a good job. And I will tell you what we are continuing to do. So I currently sit on a committee that partners with the City and County of Denver, our council people, the mayor's office, and various departments. We are having ongoing conversations of what that collaboration looks like. So Denver Public Schools is working hand in hand with our city officials as well as our city agencies. We are also working with our state legislators as well as our federal delegates. So this is comprehensive for us. Just because you don't hear us talking about it doesn't mean that we're not doing the work. The work is still happening. We're leaning into our school leaders because that's where the first level of trust is for our parents, because we want to make sure that they feel safe when they are engaging in Know Your Right training.
Kudos to the district. I think they are doing a phenomenal job in keeping ICE out of our schools. But we also have to look at getting resources to parents because students do have to leave our building. So I will want to see us partnering with our community hubs and social workers to make sure that students are safe at home and en route to school. So I agree that DPS is doing a great job in keeping ICE out of our schools and off our school buses and keeping our students safe.
Thank you all so much. School safety also came up frequently in questions submitted by the public. How should DPS protect students from gun violence? And what should happen to students who bring guns to school? Jeremy, we'll start with you.
Yeah, that's simple. We keep our students safe by making sure that there are metal detectors and by doing random backpack checks at those high-need schools. If a child is caught with a weapon, then we have to look at getting that child resources, but in an alternative setting. I don't think that a child should return to a classroom if they have brought a weapon into our school. But that's where we step in and give them the resources that they need as far as mental health and making sure that they still receive a quality education, but in an alternative setting. So I believe in metal detectors. I also believe in having SROs in those schools. That's how we keep guns out of our schools.
So I will tell you what I have done is I put forth a recommendation that all of our schools in DPS undergo a safety assessment. And I want to say thank you to the Denver voters for trusting in my leadership and passing the bond, so that now all of our schools we're adding cameras for places that I want to make sure I'm using inclusive language here, but we're adding cameras strategically to our school buildings. We're also updating the vestibules, making them safe for entry. I've also worked with students to pass policy to ensure that Denver Public Schools, at least once a year, is reminding parents about safe gun storage. We also updated our discipline matrix with students, teachers, community, and parents so that it's transparent and easy to read.
Well, I do appreciate the DPS discipline matrix. As a former teacher who still keeps in contact with her students, I've had parents reach out whose students have experienced violence, and they have administrators not being held accountable to that matrix. I will also never support metal detectors in our school that will criminalize Black and Latino students. We know who will be affected by that. We know who will, and I will not support that any day. We have to ensure that we look at it holistically. Safety is a mental health concern. When we have large class sizes and we have nurses stationed at 3 different schools and they have high caseloads and there's not enough funding for pullouts, we have to consider that, not criminalizing our students.
Thank you for the question. This past weekend, I held a safety roundtable that can.
No, I don't want to interrupt, but Jeremy, you have a rebuttal?
Yes.
Okay, so you have 1 rebuttal, 30 seconds.
Yeah, so this, Monica, I just want to be clear on how does a metal detector criminalize Black and brown kids? We walk through metal detectors when we catch, flights, any type of public event, football games, we go through metal detectors. How does metal detectors criminalize students?
Because A, that costs money that the district simply does not have. B, we're not talking about football games, we're talking about schools. I do not want my kids to feel like they are at a football game or at a TSA line. And we absolutely know, we can look at data on any given level and see who is impacted the most, who is suspended right now the most, who is out of school suspended the most. What would make that stop with metal detectors? We have to look at discipline through a holistic way.
Thank you. Timiya, we'll go back to you. I'll repeat the question. How should DPS protect students from gun violence? What should happen to students who bring guns to school?
Thanks so much for the question. This past weekend, I was able to host a safety roundtable where we had students, community leaders, especially and DPD as well, present, where we were able to identify what are some of the challenges when we talk about school safety and what are solutions that we can put in place in order to make sure that we are keeping our schools safe. When it comes to guns in schools, this is part of my work that I led as a re-engagement specialist, putting policies in place so that if students show up in our buildings with weapons, we're able to provide alternative settings for them while we're able to make sure that we're keeping things safe for everyone. Safety is something that we need to continue to monitor, but we need to be having collaborative conversations with our students, with our educators, with our principals to make sure that we are getting the solution correct the first time.
Thank you all. So DPS has a mix of district-run and charter schools, and several audience members and students submitted questions on this topic. What is your opinion on charter schools? And Timiya, we'll start with you.
Regardless of the governance model, whether it's charter, innovation, traditional, all schools need to be held to high expectations. We need to make sure that we have quality schools where our kids are able to learn, where our kids are able to thrive, where our teachers feel warm and welcome and have the supports and resources to do this work. And we have to focus on achievement, transparency, and accountability for all schools. When we talk about achievement, being clear on what the target outcomes are. Transparency, we have open and honest dialogue about what's working and what's not working. And when we talk about accountability, that's for all, and it needs to start at the board. The board needs to model the behavior that we want to see. That is how we have a real commitment to excellence in this district. So it doesn't matter what the model is. We just need to make sure that all kids are achieving.
Well, I personally, specifically as a Black woman and as a parent, will never knock any parent's decision to send their kid where they think they will be successful. And someone who's taught at traditional models and innovation schools. I have one daughter in a private school and I have 5 kids. We're a blended family, 5 kids in a public school. So while I support every parent's ability to pick the school that they think is right, We have to think why people are pouring so much money, these out-of-state charter networks pouring millions of dollars into local state elections. There has to be accountability. When you have the option to serve special needs students, and when you have the option after the October count to kick those students out that you don't want to deal with, we have to have transparency and accountability. While I absolutely support any parent's decision to send their kids when they want, we have to have accountability, and I believe educators at every school deserve collective bargaining rights.
Will you repeat the question, please?
Yes. What is your opinion on charter schools?
So my opinion on charter schools is right now they're a part of the family of schools. And I want to and this question is a little challenging for me because our children go to these schools. I advocate for every student in DPS, regardless of the school model. The school that I talked about earlier, that was a charter school. I have to protect our students irregardless of the model that they go to, whether it's a charter school, innovation school, or a district-supported school. And that's what I will continue to do. But also, let's ground ourselves in the fact that the concept of a charter school started by educators, teachers. The concept of innovation schools started by teachers. So let's get back to honoring the brilliance that teachers bring to the table.
Charter schools are a part of our model of all schools. I support charter schools. I support innovation schools. I support traditional district-run schools. As long as the school is serving our students at the highest level, I support it. Charter school is a public school. So I think charter schools has its place in the DPS family of schools, just like the other school models. Thank you.
Thank you all. The school board oversees the superintendent, and that topic came up frequently in questions submitted by the public. Is DPS Superintendent Alex Marrero doing a good job? Why or why not? Jeremy, we'll start with you.
To be honest, when we look at the superintendent, he's doing what the board has allowed him to do. And he is not performing the way that I would want him to, but we also have to look at the board. I believe that we have to look at rewriting those ends policies because right now the wording in those are very vague and it's hard to hold him accountable with vague goals. So he's not performing the way I would want him to, but to his defense, his bosses needs to do a better job in holding him accountable. So no, I don't think that the superintendent is performing the way he should, and I don't think that the board is governing him the way they should.
Thank you for this question. Over 80% graduation rate, dyslexia screening by the 3rd grade. We've expanded the access to AP, honors, and concurrent enrollment. We have agreements with 3 universities that our students graduating from Denver Public Schools with a minimum of 2.0 GPA will have automatic acceptance. That's an equity builder. We have community hubs that positioned us to welcome in our new-to-country families. We've increased teacher pay as of August by, with steps in lane, nearly 40%. Increased minimum wage to $20 an hour. We're seeing the medium growth percentile increased. Again, like I said, black students by 9%, on average 5% over the last 3 years. I think we're doing okay, but there's still work to be done.
Many candidates will try and gaslight you to make you feel like things are going great. We see the data. we see that our Black and Latino students are not performing. We see that the superintendent had to fill out his own evaluation. We see that some of the dysfunction has gotten in the way of putting students first. We see that the district had an equity day that they had to cancel and told teachers to self-reflect because it was not planned out. We can do better, he can do better, and I will do better.
When we first learned that the board was having conversations around renewing the superintendent's contract back in March, I actually showed up at the board meeting in public comment to ask the question, why are we fast tracking this process? The board spent so much time creating an evaluation process that the public still has no idea and no clue what the metrics are and how they think the superintendent is performing. But what I can tell you based off the listening tour that I've done as a candidate is that our community is asking questions around why the rush. Our community is asking questions around his leadership and why we have allowed certain decisions such as school students to be not held accountable to expectations. The board has 3 things that they're responsible for. Managing their sole employee should certainly be a priority that they should be focusing on. And if elected, I will do just that.
Thank you all. We are going to move on to a lightning round now. So candidates, please raise your hand if you agree with the following statements. Denver Public Schools is headed in the right direction. School choice, or the ability for students to choose any public school, is a good thing.
Limiting public comment at Denver school board meetings was the right decision. The school board does not spend enough time discussing academic data. Schools should have all gender restrooms. Thank you.
So now we are going to move into closing statements. Each candidate will have 30 seconds for a closing statement. So Jeremy, we'll start with you.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you all for coming out tonight. One thing we know is that we have lost trust in not only our school board, but we have also lost trust in our superintendent. And one thing that I know when I'm talking to families out in this community, it's time that we put public back into public education. It's time for a new era in education, one that is rooted in community, that is funded with equity, and that is driven by our students, by our parents, and by our teachers. We know that no matter where we live in this community, no matter what our background may be, we all want the same things. And that's opportunities for our kids and a community that thrives. I'm Jeremy Harris, and I'll be honored to have your support and represent you as your next school board member for District 4.
I want to first thank the Denver voters for trusting in my leadership 4 years ago. And I'm running for re-election because this work isn't finished. And because I believe in the brilliance of our students, I believe in the hard work of our educators, and I believe in bringing the community along, which is why I drafted and sponsored the community engagement policy. Together, we can keep building a Denver Public School district that leads the state of Colorado and the nation, where every student thrives.
District 4 is a crowded race, but make no mistake, our qualifications couldn't be more different. As the only candidate in this race who was a classroom teacher, I know what it takes to put students first. I'm also the only candidate endorsed officially by the Teachers Union, by the Paras Union, by Working Families Party, by DALF, by CWA, and AFSCME. Those are working people and working families. While some in this race are backed by out-of-state billionaires who want to privatize education, others have contributed to the dysfunction of this board. It is time for a qualified leader for District 4. My name is Monica, and thank you for your time.
I've had the privilege of spending my entire career supporting young people both in and out of the classroom. As an executive director who's managed multi-million-dollar budgets, to a re-engagement specialist and dropout intervention, make no qualms about it. I went to school to be a teacher because it was teachers that got me to where I am today. They saw something in me before I ever saw it in myself, and that was potential. If you believe that your students deserve to be kept at the center of every decision, then it's easy. Timiya Jackson, District 4. You can learn more at jackson4dps.com. Thank you.
And with that, I'd like to thank all the candidates for being here tonight: Jeremy Harris, Michelle Quattlebaum, Monica Hunter, and Timiya Jackson. Thank you so much. And we're going to be right back. You can clap. We're going to be right back with the 3 candidates vying to represent Central Denver's District 3. All right. All right, I think we're ready to begin. So here, the candidates representing District 3 in Central Denver. We have Caron Blanke, Scott Esserman, and DJ Torres. I do want to go over the rules one more time for this group of candidates. So each candidate will be given a minute to respond to the question. We have the clock right there. It's small, but you can see it. Each candidate will be given 1 rebuttal, limited to 30 seconds. And then we'll end each debate with each candidate providing a 30-second closing statement. So with that, I'm going to turn over to Melanie.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. What is the biggest issue facing DPS, and how would you address it? Caron, we'll start with you.
Thank you. Good evening. I think that academic achievement is one of the biggest issues we have facing the district, particularly the equity gap that exists between white students and students of color. I think mental health and safety go hand in hand in ensuring academic achievement. I think that we need to restore a healthy governance system to this board. I think that we need to see a board who strives for excellence and make sure that they are holding their one employee accountable to results. And I think that the board has lost community trust. I think that community voice has been silenced, and I want to see real engagement, real listening, and listening leads to decision making. We shouldn't be making decisions without talking to the people who are in our schools and the spaces and in the communities where our kids spend their days. I also think we need data to drive our decision making as well, and I think that there's a very linear process to that. Thank you.
Thanks for the question. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I think the number one concern that is impacting DPS right now is regaining and maintaining trust, both in terms of the role of the board, but also just being out in community, speaking with folks. And for me, I think that maintenance of trust really comes back to having a board that feels grounded, feels settled, feels responsible, feels mature. That's number one priority for me that I think we can solve as potential members of the board. I think next is helping folks feel re-engaged by their board processes. I've been out in the community talking with folks all over District 3, and the number one concern that people raise to me is how do we continue to be in relationship with the board? How do we continue to be in relationship with the superintendent? And how do we continue to allow this feedback loop process to continue to develop? For me, that's issue number one that we will address, that I will address when I enter the board come the end of the year. For me, it really is about regaining and maintaining that trust, both with community and for us holding ourselves responsible as board members.
Given that the school district's job is to educate children, our number one issue is how we educate children. You've heard a lot of repeated messages tonight attacking the board, attacking the district, attacking the superintendent. And the reality is we were just rated green for the second time in our history. Is that good enough? Not even close. But we know that when we pull up to a stoplight, green means go. It means continue on the same progress, continue working towards what we need to get for all of our students. You're gonna hear a lot tonight, you already heard a lot tonight, about attacks. But you haven't heard what people are actually going to do. I've been in community. Community drafted me to run the first time. I'm proud of my interactions with community. I'm proud of the amount that I show up in community as a board member. I haven't seen that from a lot of the other candidates, and I hope to in the future.
Thank you all. So we've asked this question a couple of times tonight. Enrollment in DPS is declining. DPS has a policy that calls for closing schools with low test scores. Would you vote to close a school with low enrollment or low test scores? Why or why not? And Scott, we'll start with you.
Great. There's no more difficult decision that we face as a board, that anybody would face as a board, than having to close a school for any reason. I don't want to vote to close any school, and I've had to. I will not vote to close a school based on their achievement results. Period, full stop. I have not, I will not. When it comes to declining enrollment, that we know is primarily a result of declining birth rates, not just in Denver and not just in Colorado, but nationwide, we have to look at how we make sure our resources are distributed equitably. And when we are subsidizing smaller schools with lower enrollments, we're doing a disservice to all of our students. And so in those moments, we have built a policy that takes into account community voice. And I'm proud of that. And we're going to continue working in that direction. And I look forward to your support in doing so.
No, I don't believe that I will be in favor of closing schools based on test scores and low enrollment. I think these are ultimately equity issues that we need to address as a district. I think for me, the test scores, as many of our colleagues have talked about tonight, test scores represent, I think, often an undereducated group of folks who, not because of their own fault, but because of the district, I think folks have, been not equitably educated, and so then to punish them and go back to their to their communities and say, because we as a district have caused a disservice, we are now using that to grant the ability to close a school. No, I don't agree with that. I also think low enrollment cannot be a reason, both because of birth rates and because of gentrification. We can't punish communities and families in continuing to harm those communities, especially those who are being forced out of their own rooted neighborhoods. I don't believe in that at all. And I also want to say, I've spoken at length with folks from Palmer Elementary School. They're hurt. They were really challenged in this process and would love to support other schools not have to go through that same process.
Nobody wants to close any school. On the board, I would take an honest and thoughtful approach to these decisions. We can expect an 8% decline in enrollment by 2029. So we need to be proactive in the way that we're thinking about this. And there are many factors that should go into considerations about whether to keep a school open or close it that impacts communities deeply. We want to use data-driven frameworks, clear, transparent metrics that we will use consistently across the board and across the district to make difficult decisions when necessary. We're fiduciaries. Board members have a financial responsibility to steward the money that's coming into the district, and we have to make sure our schools are being utilized to the best capacity they can be, and that we are serving our students. Wasn't out of time. And I think most importantly, we have to be in communities as early as possible to engage in real conversations so that there are no surprises when anything happens, when we do face these challenges.
Thank you all. Thank you. DPS has taken steps to protect students from immigration enforcement in and around schools, even suing the Trump administration. How do you think the district should approach this issue? Caron, we'll start with you.
Thank you. I think that the school district has done an excellent job in protecting students from ICE in schools. I would absolutely uphold this policy. I would do everything I can to fight to protect our students. I know from speaking to school leaders and teachers right now that we have students across the district that are not showing up to school. And when the school calls to find out where they are or they go to their homes, they can't find them. This cannot happen, and I will fight at every level to make sure that the school district continues to make sure that schools remain safe institutions where kids can know that they're going to be protected when they show up.
Yeah, I also will agree that the district has done a really wonderful job continuing to support our students from all over the world, and I want to just really honor that is a really difficult process, and families are hurting, students are hurting, and I want to be an ongoing advocate that supports our students from other countries. I do want to say at my son's school, his principal doesn't have a ton of relationships that she could just call parents on the phone. And when immigration was threatening the students at our elementary school, she called me and she called my husband. And she said, hey, we would love it if you could just come and be another presence at the school to be sure that we're safeguarding folks from entering the building without any permission. I really was so thankful for that opportunity and got to see firsthand the fear that crossed folks' eyes as they were coming to and from the school to pick up their children that day. That was a powerful experience and one that I would not wish upon any family in DPS. I'd also say, like what we did at our school, we continue to perpetuate Know Your Rights trainings, red card trainings, legal supports, things like that to continue to support our students from other countries.
I'm not going to tell you what I would do. I'm going to tell you what I have done. And what you've heard from every candidate thus far is that what we're doing as a district is on point, and it's what we should be doing. And I'm proud to have led that effort. I'm proud to have been in Washington, D.C. for the last 2 years lobbying with our congressional delegation to ensure the rights of our immigrant families and our immigrant students and our new-to-country students, that I advocated for additional resources from our State House and from our State Senate that were ultimately provided. Thank you, Senator Gonzalez, among others. I'm proud of this work. I'm proud of what we've done. I'm proud of the lawsuit that we filed against the Trump administration and additional lawsuits we will file. Just this morning, I was at one of our comprehensive high schools, speaking with one of our principals, who shared with us that ICE is posted up outside the school. They have not come for our students, but they're taking pictures of license plates. They're going to the parking lots where students are getting lunch and acting on intimidation, and I won't stand for it. I haven't, and I'll continue not to.
Thank you all. So several questions submitted by the public ask specifically about the achievement of Black and Latino students. What policies would you support, or what direction would you give the superintendent regarding the education of Black and Latino students in particular? Scott, we'll start with you.
Okay. So again, this is something that's incredibly important to me. It's one of the reasons that I was elected. It's one of the things that I ran on. It's one of the things that I continue to focus on. And in the midst of our results, it's what we need to continue to focus on. So when we talk about policies, we're talking about the kind of guardrails that allow the superintendent to take the actions in the school with his expert staff, with our chief academic officer, that are boosting those results. That we have to look at the growth results that we got this year as a leading indicator of what we're going to see in terms of achievement moving forward in the future. I've already advocated for repeatedly, and now we'll put into policy changes so that we are evaluating our schools beyond test scores. You've heard it from almost every candidate tonight. Test scores are an inadequate measure that don't paint a full picture of our students. And yet we continue to lean into that. And the first policy that I'll pass is in my second term will be to ensure that we're looking at additional data.
When I worked in the central office of Denver Public Schools, I worked in culturally responsive education, which is the department, or was the department, that focused on equity and the curriculum, equity and education, educating our teachers, and also equity and educating our senior leadership team. When I was a part of that work, I helped write the No Justice, No Peace board resolution that some of the board members, both past and present, passed during their tenure. I worked with the students from MLK Early College to write that board resolution. I also helped enact the Black Excellence Report, Black Excellence Resolution plans that schools then enacted in every single one of their schools. My team was tasked with making sure that the schools were turning that into practice. I was also an early reader of the La Raza report, written by some of our folks here in the audience today, which led to a body of work that is still happening in Denver Public Schools. So I think that the work has happened, and it can only grow and improve. I think continuing to center the importance of the data, that all of us continue to talk about how Black and brown students continue to achieve disproportionately to their white colleagues and peers, I think that's a problem, and I want to continue to work on this.
I appreciate the question. I think that when over half of our students are students of color, we need to have answers. I think we have to demand radical transparency from our superintendent on performance data. Currently, I think that there is a lot of information that is hidden from the public. I personally use a third-party source to access disaggregated data. This can't continue. The school board has to be responsible for the academic achievement of all students. So I think we need real accountability to get access to disaggregated data, to understand that currently we have a very serious problem. The recent CMAS scores tell us actually that charter and innovation schools are serving our kids of color the best. And I'm wondering, why are we not going out and breaking down the silos of schools and replicating best practices that are already happening where Latino and Black students are succeeding and doing well? I also think we need to understand root causes of why we are where we are. Thank you.
Scott, you had a rebuttal?
Yeah, I just want to make sure that we're not misinforming the public. That there is not data that our charter schools and innovation schools are doing better than our district-run schools are. That's simply false, and the data doesn't bear it out. Disaggregated data doesn't bear it out. Charters, innovation schools, and district schools all have schools that are doing well and all have schools that are not doing well. And we see it across the district, and to make that claim is just disingenuous and problematic.
Actually, a recent op-ed published in the Denver Post by our colleagues Rob Stein and former Mayor Federico Pena provides very specific data on exactly how students of color are being served better by their charters, and I would encourage everybody to find that article and read it.
Thank you. The next question will start with you, Caron. DPS has a mix of district-run and charter schools, and several audience members and students submitted questions on this topic. What is your opinion of charter schools?
I find it really interesting that the question keeps coming up when charter schools, innovation schools are public schools in Denver. They're part of a family, a portfolio of schools. And I believe that they are necessary to ensure that we're providing equitable, high-quality educational experiences for all of our students. I think that when we hint or even directly criticize the idea that charters exist, we're criticizing parents and their right to choose what's best for their student, and recognizing that we should be differentiating among students' needs. And we're very fortunate in the city that we have an opportunity to provide different options for our families. I also think that when we attack charters, we're attacking the educators who choose to teach in those schools. And there are reasons. In speaking to teachers at charter schools, I find it amazing how there are unique philosophies and ideologies, and that's why teachers choose to be there.
My opinion on charter schools is that, as everyone has mentioned, they are a part of the family of schools. However, I think it's the responsibility of the board to make sure that we're interrogating all of the options that our families have at an equitable level. And I quite frankly think that when charter schools focus on, hiring young professionals who may or may not have college degrees, who then don't have the opportunity to form collective action, I do wonder about the ability for those educators to be the most informed educators they can be when making the selection to enter into a charter school. I also think about the centralized accountability that happens from the central office that charter schools often have the ability to opt out of. And I think I'm a former special educator. I can't help but think about the ways that some charter schools have made the choice to opt out of serving all of our students, especially those with disabilities. So I do struggle with the idea that they're all equally providing education to our young people. While I do think that, yes, they are a part of the network of schools, I do think that we can do more to hold them accountable from the central office.
We've heard a lot of calls tonight for transparency and trust, and we have candidates who are supported by charter money. And so this question is about adult issues and not about kid issues, because kids don't care whether they go to a charter, whether they go to an innovation school, or whether they go to a district-run school. And most parents that you ask may not know whether or not their child is going to a charter school or a district-run school or an innovation school. This question is divisive. This question is problematic. This question has become part of the narrative of what we talk about in Denver public schools, and it doesn't serve students. For 20 years as an educator, for 4 years on this board, I've served students, I've committed my life to serving students, and I'm going to continue to do so. And I'm going to do so as a board member, and I'm going to do so as a community member, as I did long before I was on the board, and I'm going to continue to do so.
Thank you all. So Lily Becker is a junior at George Washington High School and a Faith Bridge Fellow, she submitted a question about how the board would hold the superintendent accountable. Many audience members did as well. Is DPS Superintendent Alex Marrero doing a good job? Why or why not? Scott?
So the short answer is yes, but I'm not going to stop there, and that shouldn't surprise anyone. He is not, however, doing a perfect job. And to have a simple dichotomy of is he doing a good job or not a good job doesn't allow for the nuance that any of us would have, our employers have for us. We want to evaluate what he's doing well, and we want to encourage him on what he needs to grow on and learn on, and that's exactly what we've done as a board. You can look up the evaluations that we've done. Part of that evaluation is in fact a self-evaluation, but that's not the entire evaluation. You can check that out yourself. It's all available. Is he doing a good job? Has he created community hubs? Has he been the one that stood up to the Trump administration and made sure that we filed lawsuits? Is he the one that brought cops back into schools when many of us on the board didn't want them back in schools because people demanded safety? He's done good work, and he's done good work on academic achievement, and he deserves the opportunity to continue that work.
Can I just take a rebuttal? No, I responded.
Scott had the rebuttal, and then Caron answered. So this can be your 30-second rebuttal.
Thank you. I'm curious if you feel that way, why there was secrecy and a violation of Colorado open meeting laws to extend the superintendent's contract prematurely and without a performance evaluation that the public and stakeholders were part of participating in, just the same way that teachers and school leaders are evaluated by community members.
So it's interesting that once again you have your facts wrong. There was no open meeting law violation around that. The only open meeting law violation that occurred was around the returning of cops to East High School. So I'm not sure how else to answer that other than to simply say there was nothing in advance. There was a story created by an organization that supports you with tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars, who tried to make this an issue when it wasn't.
So we want to move on. DJ, I'll ask the question again. Is DPS Superintendent Alex Marrero doing a good job? Why or why not?
Yeah, I think he's doing a fine job. That's what I'll say. I think part of the question that I have as a hopefully incoming board member is wanting to continue to understand what data has been made public to the, both internal staff, but also to the general public, and what data is yet to be uncovered, both by asking good and informed and hopefully more developed questions as the board continues to evolve what it's looking for in terms of data. I also think he's doing a fine job, but probably not worth extending a contract. And I think for me, that is where I have a problem, is taking the opportunity away from folks who may or may not be serving in the board come the end of the year to extend a contract based on little to no community feedback. I have a problem with that. And so for me, yes, he's doing a fine job. Is there more to be done? Definitely. Is there more to uncover with what's yet to be done? Absolutely. And I look forward to being a part of how we continue to uncover and evolve the narrative around data that's coming out of the superintendent and his staff.
I would have loved if the board had decided to conduct a performance evaluation the way any CEO would have had to undergo in any business in this country. So it's hard to answer that question without information from the people who have direct access to his performance. As a parent in the district, I have great concerns about the superintendent's performance. I have met with him personally. Having the opportunity to speak a couple of times to him. I've also sent numerous emails which have gone unanswered, and I have yet to see action plans that align with the actual issues that he says he cares about. So I have a lot of concern about what the board is doing to hold their one employee accountable, as that is probably one of their most important jobs. I think that I'd like to see a lot more community engagement from the superintendent. I was at a listening session recently where he came in the room for 5 minutes and then left, and there was no opportunity for community members to actually engage with him, which is a unique opportunity because we're usually restricted by 2 minutes.
Thank you all. So now we're going to move into a lightning round. So candidates, raise your hand if you agree with the following statements. Denver Public Schools is headed in the right direction. Denver High School should have armed police officers stationed inside.
Limiting public comment at Denver school board meetings was the right decision. The school board does not spend enough time discussing academic data. Schools should have all gender restrooms. Thank you.
Now we're going to move into closing statements. Each candidate will have 30 seconds for a closing statement. So Caron, we'll start with you.
Thank you. Thank you again to Regis University, Chalkbeat, Channel 7 for hosting us tonight, for all of you coming out. I am really excited to have the opportunity to run in this campaign. I've gotten to meet some incredible school leaders, educators, families, and hear about what's happening in our district beyond my own personal experience. I'm a mom of 3 children, 2 DPS graduates, and 1 student who's in DPS high school. My background is in early childhood education, so I believe that the first 5 years of life are crucial. As a board member, I would push to see more and stronger early childhood centers. Sorry, I'm out of...
time's up.
Sorry.
Okay.
Thank you.
DJ.
Thank you for taking the time to listen and engage, both in the audience and with these really thoughtful questions, both that you're offering and the offerings from our audience members. I'm running because our kids, educators, and families deserve a board that leads with transparency, integrity, and hope. I've spent my career turning community priorities into real policy, not behind closed doors, but in partnership with the people most affected. I'm ready to bring stability, honesty, and heart back to our schools. On November 4th, I ask for your vote so we can build a Denver Public Schools that truly serves every child and every family. Thank you.
In addition to over 20 years in the classroom, I've spent the last 18 years as a DPS parent with a senior who's graduating this year. That's a lot of experience. I've spent the last 4 years on the board. I've spent many more years in community. People are up here asking for your vote who haven't been present for our students and haven't been present in community. I have been, and I'm committed to continuing to do so. I'm going to refer last to a Denver Post op-ed that said the ideal candidate will be independent enough to buck the DCTA union when it's wrong and strong enough to stand up to failing charter schools and demand accountability. I am that candidate.
Again, I'd like to thank all of the candidates here tonight, Scott Esserman, DJ Torres, and Caron Blanke. And with that, we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to be right back with the two candidates vying to represent Southwest Denver's District 2. Can everyone hear me okay? All right, we're going to start the next debate. So with us, we have candidates in District 2 representing Southwest Denver. Tonight we have Xochitl Gaytán and Mariana del Hierro. Did I do that correctly?
It was very good. Thank
Okay,
you.
wonderful. Our first question will come from Melanie.
Hello, welcome. What is the biggest issue facing DPS and how would you address it? Mariana, we'll start with you.
Thank you. There are a number, but I will start with my top priority, which is the deep, persistent achievement and opportunity gaps for our Latinx students. For me, what really motivated me to step into the race was La Raza report that came out 2 years ago that showed that our Latinx students were thrice segregated in our DPS system. And so for me, a system in which more than the majority of the students identify as Latinx, and we are allowing the biggest population of our schools to fall through the cracks, for me, that is unacceptable. And so what I would do is really look nationally and locally at best practices in order to really support the academic success of our Latinx students, and then be able to create a strategy adapted to the local needs of our students, and then be able to provide the supports throughout the system to not only roll out the strategy, but also provide the supports for our educators, our administrators, to be able to implement that strategy across our system.
Thank you. The biggest issue facing DPS is making sure that every student, no matter their background, has what they need to thrive. And with half of our 90,000 students identifying as Latino, Mexicano, Chicano, many bilingual or multilingual, we must strengthen our multilingual education programming and break down the barriers to success. So I appreciate that my opponent brings up the La Raza report. When the superintendent and I commissioned the research for that report, we did immediately roll out the recommendations of that report. Hence, we have the Latino Student Success Programming right now in many schools throughout Southwest Denver. And so for me, the following barriers is what we need to address for success. Number one, protect and expand wraparound services like our community hubs that provide food, clothing, GED programming. When we support the whole child, achievement rises. Number two, support our teachers through strong community schools because this empowers each school to meet its own unique needs. Number three, fight for sustainable funding locally and from the state to protect neighborhood public schools from privatization and closure. Number four, ensure mental health resources and safety by expanding partnerships, training staff, and listening to our communities. These are proven strategies.
Okay. And I apologize, I did not go over the rules again. So each candidate will be given a minute to respond to the question. Each candidate will get one rebuttal for 30 seconds. And we do have a question coming up about the La Raza report, but right now we're going to talk about enrollment in DPS and that it's declining. DPS also has a policy that calls for closing schools with low test scores. So would you vote to close a school with low enrollment or low test scores? Why or why not? And Xochitl, we'll start with you.
Thank you. I believe that the answer is no. Test scores only measure a very narrow slice of what makes a school successful and have built-in biases that make it tougher on District 2 kids. They can be a part of the picture, but we need to consider the full context. Declining enrollment in Southwest Denver isn't happening in a vacuum. It's actually driven by the charter schools siphoning away off resources from our public schools with little to no accountability, abusive work conditions, poor student outcomes. Gentrification and decades of disinvestment in neighborhood schools also plays a role. Closing schools in response only accelerates these problems. That's why I fought to keep public school buildings in the hands of district-run schools. Summit Academy is a great example. I worked with superintendent and my colleagues to move the predominantly Latino, Mexicano, Chicano students from a cramped former bank building into the Castro Elementary building, giving them a real cafeteria, a real gym, and the space that they deserve. After a recent closure debate, I supported the moratorium for EL 18 to endure the decades of closures that the community needs time to heal. Thank you.
I fully recognize that schools are the heart of our community. And so when we're talking about closures, we really need to assess what is in terms of academic outcomes, what supports have been provided to those schools prior to the decision of closing them, and where are they at in terms of that support and that assessment of where those schools are at. Now, in terms of demographic shifts, that is a part that we cannot control. We know that in Southwest Denver, those demographic shifts are going to happen more than in other districts across the city. And so with those needs coming up, we need to have conversations about how are we having conversations with schools and with community members to start preparing for those shifts in demographics so that we include families in those decisions, because we need to trust that families are able to make those decisions with the school board.
Thank you both. DPS has a mix of district-run and charter schools, and several audience members submitted questions on this topic, including Diana Garcia, a sophomore at DSST College View and a Faith Bridge Fellow. What is your opinion on charter schools? Mariana, we'll start with you.
As a DPS mom, I support all schools. I am no one to tell a parent that the choice that they are making is an incorrect choice for their child. I am someone who knows that we should be holding all schools accountable to the same academic performance, the same individual needs for our students. And what we should be fighting for is schools that are providing that high level of academic supports, emotional supports, and community supports for our communities.
I appreciate Diana and all the students that have participated in submitting questions for this. I've always been a champion for student voice in my 4 years on the board. And I had a student actually write me a letter from DSST College View about a year and a half ago or so. And she asked if I would please help get translators or interpreters at her school, because the school was not providing those translators for her Spanish-speaking parents at the parent-teacher conferences. I went to her school. I asked to speak to her. They wouldn't allow me to go up into her classroom, and they brought her down to the conference room. And when I had a conversation with her in the conference room on the first level, I explained to her, and she was very saddened by the fact, and it saddened me to see her so sad, that I had very limited oversight or control over anything that happens in any of the charter school networks. We are a board that only authorizes renewals of charter schools, and what I did was I advocated to make sure that the leadership was providing the interpretation that the school needed, that they were not providing at the time.
Thank you both. DPS has taken steps to protect students from immigration enforcement in and around schools, even suing the Trump administration. How do you think the district should approach this issue, Xochitl?
I'm looking for my statement, because this actually is something that is near and dear to my heart. I was born in Mexico. I was undocumented citizen, so I have the experience of having lived undocumented until the age of 21 when I became a U.S. citizen. And when the superintendent and I had conversations right after the fascist federal administration took over, we decided that we were going to set up a plan, and we directly took that information to the board president, who supported this plan. And that plan was to go out and train all of our staff, and I also hire and partner with nonprofits to be able to provide Know Your Rights trainings to all of our families. And that plan has been very effective and efficient. We are asking a lot of our teachers, but all of our teachers have responded in kind and are well prepared to go up against this fascist federal administration.
Could you repeat the question?
Yes. How do you think the district should approach the issue when it comes to immigration enforcement in and around schools?
Yes, currently I commend the district for the work that they have done. Thank you so much, Xochitl, and other members of the school board for the work that you all have done to protect our students. I think that the district has really stood the line of not allowing ICE and communicating that out very clearly to not allow ICE into our schools or anywhere near our vicinities. For me, I would continue the work of partnering with community organizations to do Know Your Rights trainings, to keep educating our teachers, our administrators, our principals on how to protect our students, how to educate our families, but also I would expand a little bit further and really partnering with our principals, with our teachers who are daily listening to the needs of our families, because this is an ever-evolving issue and we cannot expect to know everything. And so continuously hearing from families of what are their evolving needs and partnering with families to also be able to create some type of collective transportation for our families, for families who do feel safe taking their kids to school, to help support families who don't.
Thank you both. School safety also came up frequently in questions submitted by the public. How should DPS protect students from gun violence? And what should happen to students who bring guns to school? Mariana, we'll start with you.
Yes, thank you. I support district-wide implementation of comprehensive anti-bullying programs, mandatory training in trauma-informed and restorative practices for staff, mental health teams that reflect the communities we serve, and also push for accessible complaint reporting systems and stronger accountability measures to track and respond to school climate data. And in terms of students who do bring guns to school, I think that needs to be addressed immediately and be able to partner with other organizations that are able to provide students with the support they need, the mental health support needs that they need, because we cannot exclude a child or a youth from a school simply because they brought a gun to a school. That act alone means that student needs a lot more support than our teachers, our principals can provide that one student. And so really partnering with community organizations that provide that student what they need while also allowing them to continue their education.
As a DPS mom of a high schooler, school safety is very personal to me. And that is why I supported the update of the new discipline matrix. We also have the Safe to Tell hotline, we're both working very effectively. We do actually have students that have reported their classmates that have walked into a school building with guns. Which is also why, as a board member, I voted to return the SROs, the school resource officers, to our middle school and our high schools after DPS experienced school shootings. A decision based on strong support from the surveys that came back from students, teachers, educators, and families. Let me be clear, though, the SROs are not here to police our students, but they are here to build trust and to prevent the harm. At the same time, safety isn't just about physical security, it's also about mental health. So we need more counselors, more therapists, and we need trained staff so that they have someone to turn to.
Thank you. So we received several questions about the La Raza report. Both of you mentioned it. It was commissioned by DPS, and it highlights serious barriers to the success of Latino students in Denver. As a board member, what would you direct DPS to do in response to this report? Xochitl?
Not only is it what I would direct DPS to do, it's what I've done and what I've committed to. When the Latino, Mexicano, Chicano community leaders approached myself and approached the superintendent, we made a quick decision to commission the La Raza report. And once that research was completed a year and a half later, we decided to take the findings immediately and the recommendations from that report and develop and create the Latino Student Success Programming, which is a program right now that is staffed at the Central Administration Office, and this team of people goes out into the schools to provide the supports that came out of those findings. And so those recommendations are now taking action. We need to continue to grow, and we need to continue to put funding into that programming, which is why I say that we need to continue to strengthen the multilingual education department so that we continue to move that forward.
Yes. So I'll start with the La Raza report. It highlights serious barriers to the success of Latino students in Denver. So as a board member, what would you direct DPS to do in response to the report?
Thank you. In response to the report, I would put forward a Latinx student-specific excellence strategy. And that strategy itself would be based on measurable goals rooted in data. Currently in Southwest Denver, we have a population that is 70% self-identifying as Latinx, 30% with predominantly Spanish speakers. So when we're talking about the La Raza report, we're talking about Southwest Denver. And when we're looking at the current scores for our schools in Southwest Denver, the Colorado Department of Education Schoolview 2024 CMAS results, we're talking about 22 out of 25 schools that are performing less than 40% in terms of proficiency for math and reading, and that's unacceptable. And so when we're talking about creating those measurable goals rooted in data, I'm talking about our schools. I'm talking about our babies in Southwest Denver.
Rebuttal? Okay.
So if people out there in the audience and the viewing audience wouldn't mind doing some homework for me, I'd like to give you an assignment as your teacher tonight. If you could Google or research this information, data that was presented to the DPS Board of Education on behalf of the Colorado Department of Education that indicates that in Southwest Denver, of the district-run public schools in Southwest Denver, 60% of those schools are rated green under the state SPF. And so if someone can please verify and fact check what my opponent is saying, we do have very solid green schools and children who are very creative and very intelligent. And I hate for our children to be labeled as failures because they are not in failing schools, they are in green schools.
If I could have a rebuttal? Yes, thank you. My presentation of the data is not labeling students as failures. My presentation of the data is to push the board to be honest about our schools and tell our families the truth. When we're talking about green schools, we're talking about schools that have, for example, one school that is labeled as green has 15% and 20% of their students at reading proficiency and math proficiency. And so it's not about labeling our students as failures, it's about pushing our board and pushing DPS to do better for our Latinx students.
Thank you both. The school board oversees the superintendent, and that topic came up frequently in questions submitted by the public. Is DPS Superintendent Alex Marrero doing a good job? Why or why not? Mariana, we'll start with you.
In terms of Latinx students' academic performance and outcomes, I don't think that the superintendent is doing a good job. I was a part of a group of Latino leaders who submitted a letter to the school board asking for the superintendent's contract to not be renewed until a proper evaluation was conducted. We met with school board members to discuss our concerns about a superintendent of a school system where more than 50% of their students were falling through the cracks and that contract being renewed without a proper evaluation, and how problematic that is in terms of our accountability, in terms of the school board's accountability to the families, and the school board and the superintendent's role of supporting our students. What happened after that, no less than a week later, the school board then renewed the superintendent's contract behind closed doors with what Denver Post recently reported on, which may have broken some rules or some public comment rules in that space. So I would say we need a proper evaluation.
Xochitl, same question? Yeah.
In a nutshell, the answer is yes. Superintendent Dr. Alex Marrero identifies as an Afro-Latino, bilingual in Spanish. When he shows up to my district and he's speaking to the children, he's speaking to them in Spanish. And the children get really lit up and very excited and so happy to be having conversations with him in Spanish. In terms of academics, he also has, with the support of this school board and the prior school board that I served with, he actually has the highest graduation rate in the history of Denver Public Schools. Highest graduation rate. We do have monthly monitoring reports that we have with the metrics that we all agreed on, including the 3 new school board members that were brought on 2 years ago. We all agreed on what those metrics are, and we monitor him effectively and efficiently on what that is, and he is meeting all of his metrics, all of his goals. In terms of an open meetings law issue, I want to be very clear that our process for negotiating the superintendent's contract followed the Colorado Sunshine laws to the letter.
Could I have one rebuttal?
You had your rebuttal, right? I believe so. Yes. So, sorry, candidates are only allowed one rebuttal. Yes, for the whole.
Thank you.
But right now, we're going to move into the lightning round, and candidates, just raise your hand if you agree with the following statements. Denver Public Schools is headed in the right direction.
Yes.
School choice, or the ability for students to choose any public school, is a good thing.
Limiting public comment at Denver school board meetings was the right decision. The school board does not spend enough time discussing academic data. Schools should have all gender restrooms. Thank you both.
So now we'll move into closing statements. Each candidate will have 30 seconds for a closing statement, and Mariana, we'll start with you.
I'm running for school board because I believe every student deserves to be seen, supported, and challenged to reach their full potential. I'm a DPS mom, and I have seen teachers give their all to their students, but I've also seen the strain that comes with trying to support overcrowded classrooms and the strain that causes for our educators and also the academic outcomes for our students. I'm a community leader with a track record of delivering proven programs that support our community. I am also a public health expert, and I expect to bring all of that expertise to the school board. Thank you.
My name is Xochitl Gaytán. I'm a lifelong advocate for strong, accessible neighborhood public schools and proud to be the first Mexican-born president of the Denver School Board. To my Southwest Denver community, I come to you not only as a leader, but as a parent. I've raised one son who graduated from DPS and is now 28. I'm raising another who's a current high schooler. Like so many of you, I know the hopes and the challenges of navigating our schools as a parent. As a bilingual grassroots leader, I've built trust across Southwest. By connecting directly with our Spanish-speaking families, I work alongside Latino, Mexicano, Chicano community leaders to meet the needs of our underserved students. I'm a public school champion. I would be honored to earn your trust and your vote. Gaytán for DPS.com. Thank you.
Xochitl and Mariana, thank you so much for being here tonight. And this concludes our event. We want to thank the audience for being here as well. Remember that ballots will be in the mail later this week, so please vote, and you'll be able to see all of these debates linked on CBSColorado.com and also on Chalkbeat Colorado. And again, thank you so much for joining us here tonight.